Khabib Nurmagomedov didn't just retire undefeated. He walked away from the sport with a reputation few fighters could even dream of. He was never knocked down, never cut, and never truly challenged. But while many still remember him as the eagle who mauled Conor McGregor and submitted the world's best lightweights, the real story now lies far beyond the octagon. In 2025, Khabib lives a lifestyle that most athletes can only fantasize about, one built on integrity, family, and purpose. But it wasn't always that way, and beneath the fame and discipline lies a story of raw sacrifice, business brilliance, and surprising humility. Let's take a deep look at the life of Khabib Nurmagomedov in 2025. Before Khabib Nurmagomedov was a global icon, a promoter, or a brand ambassador, he was just a kid from Sildi, a tiny mountain village in Dagestan. His father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, was a respected coach and combat sambo specialist who built a gym in their basement with little more than mats and discipline. From the start, Khabib was raised not just to be a fighter, but a warrior. That video of him wrestling a bear as a child, not a myth, it was real. He trained in snow, rain, and uphill conditions, developing both grit and humility. By the time he entered the UFC, he carried more than technique. He carried the entire burden of Dagestan on his shoulders. What made Khabib different was not just his wrestling-heavy, suffocating style inside the octagon, it was his moral compass. He wasn't about trash talk, fashion shows, or flashy weigh-in stunts. His identity was wrapped in faith, family, and fatherhood. But make no mistake, this man was paid like a showman. After his dominant 2018 victory over Conor McGregor at UFC 229, a fight that generated 2.4 million pay-per-view buys, the most in UFC history, Khabib's value skyrocketed. He made more from that fight than some champions make in a lifetime. And what did he do with the money? He sent most of it back to his family, his region, his people. From that point on, Khabib was no longer just a fighter. He was a symbol of what it looked like to win with honor. Every takedown wasn't just a physical act. It was a lesson in control, patience, and strategy. Fighters across the world admired his undefeated 29-0 record, but few truly understood the cost of maintaining such purity in a business like MMA. As of 2025, Khabib has not returned to the octagon, not even for an exhibition match. Despite repeated offers from promoters across Russia, the Middle East, and even Dana White himself, Khabib remains retired, but his presence in the sport is anything but gone. In fact, it might be stronger than ever. When people talk about the highest-paid fighters in the UFC, they usually mention Conor McGregor, John Jones, or Israel Adesanya. But what most fans don't realize is that Khabib quietly built an empire outside the cage. In 2020 alone, Khabib made over $6 million for his fight against Justin Gaethje, a number that doesn't even include his pay-per-view points, sponsorship bonuses, and international media rights. But that was just the beginning. By 2021, he was earning more from brand deals than actual fights. Let's start with endorsements. While the UFC notoriously banned fighter sponsorships on shorts, Khabib's management went global. He became the face of SalamPay, Gorilla Energy, Reebok, later replaced by Venom, and even Toyota. He reportedly turned down offers from gambling and alcohol brands due to his Islamic faith, even though they were the highest-paying deal. That decision made him more marketable in the Middle East and Muslim-majority countries, where respect and authenticity matter more than flash. Then came the business moves. In 2021, he bought a regional MMA promotion, Guerrilla Fighting Championship, for $1 million. He rebranded it to Eagle FC. By 2023, the company expanded into the United States and the UAE, attracting fighters who were either fed up with UFC pay or looking for a second chance. Khabib positioned himself as the anti-Dana White, a promoter who actually cared about fighters' health, purses, and legacy. And the revenue kept coming. He launched Eagle Mobile, a telecommunications brand that sold discounted SIM cards bundled with Khabib merch, signed gloves, and NFT fight clips. The brand now operates in 5 countries. Then came his protein snack company, Fitru, which exploded in sales after viral videos of Khabib handing out bars to children in Dagestan. In 2025, 2025, Fitru is available in over 70 countries. He even ventured into the bottled water market with Water by Khabib, an alkaline water line promoted for health and recovery. Khabib's net worth is estimated between $80 to $100 million, depending on the source. A staggering figure for someone who never took a rematch, never sold trash talk, and never lost a fight. And here's the most ironic part. He still lives like a humble man, wearing traditional Dagestani clothing more often than designer suits. As of 2025, Khabib Nurmagomedov's post-fighting life is anything but typical. While most retired fighters either become commentators, trainers, or vanish from the spotlight, Khabib chose a hybrid path that is uniquely his own. He didn't just retire from the UFC, he transitioned into a leadership role in the global MMA scene, not just as a promoter with Eagle FC, but as a cultural figure representing discipline, faith, and brotherhood. Despite living in two worlds, one foot in the Western business sphere, the other deeply rooted in Dagestani values, Khabib balances them with almost eerie precision. He still travels often between San Jose, California, and Makhachkala, Dagestan. In San Jose, he maintains training relationships with top fighters, helping with strategy and conditioning. In Dagestan, he visits local gyms and sponsors youth tournaments. You'll never see him lounging in Dubai nightclubs or flaunting a garage of Lamborghinis. That's just not who he is. Instead, Khabib prefers the quiet things: horseback riding in the Caucasus Mountains, camping with lifelong friends, kicking a ball around with local kids. He remains an avid football fan and continues to support Real Madrid. He's also stayed close to education. Khabib holds a degree in finance and economics from the Plekhanov Russian University and speaks 5 languages, including Russian, English, and Turkish. His humility is both his armor and his brand. Social media, however, is a different story. Khabib's Instagram is now a machine, a blend of motivational quotes, family moments, brand deals, and fighter promotions. With over 35 million followers in 2025, he's one of the most followed Muslim athletes on earth. But unlike many influencers, Khabib uses his platform not just to advertise, but to educate. His posts often highlight Islamic teachings, stories of his late father, and updates from war-torn regions that rarely make the news. While Khabib has turned down multiple movie offers, reality shows, and even a spot on a Netflix docuseries, there's one thing he hasn't turned down: mentorship. His cousin, Usman Nurmagomedov, is now one of the biggest rising stars in Bellator, and Khabib is heavily involved in his career. Many fans see him as the new version of Abdulmanap, not just coaching fighters, but fathering them through the storm. On the surface, Khabib Nurmagomedov's retirement looks like a clean break. He stepped away at 29-0, undefeated, on top of the world, having just submitted Justin Gaethje in October 2020. He promised his mother he wouldn't continue fighting without his father, and so he walked away. That's the story we all heard, but the reality of that decision was far more painful and complicated than it appeared. Behind the scenes, those who knew Khabib well say he battled a deep sense of emptiness after leaving the sport. For over 2 decades, his life had been built around training camps, weight cuts, press conferences, and fight nights. The roar of the crowd, the smell of canvas, the intensity of combat, all of it was suddenly gone. And while he had business ventures, fans, and global influence, none of it could fill the void left by the absence of the octagon. Khabib never admitted this publicly, but those close to him, including fighters he coached, noted a subtle change in him. He became quieter. His eyes didn't light up the same way during training sessions. There was even a stretch in 2022 when he disappeared from public view for months, retreating to the mountains of Dagestan. His team later said he was regrouping spiritually, but others believe he was grieving more than just his father. He was mourning the loss of the identity that had defined him for years. And while Khabib kept busy with Eagle FC and other businesses, the emotional strain of running a promotion added its own pressure. Fighters pulled out of events, venues fell through, sponsorships dried up during a global recession. Khabib had always been a warrior, but being a businessman, especially one with ethical principles, was another kind of war entirely. As one insider put it, he walked walked away from punches, but he walked into politics. Many fans have begged him to return, even for one exhibition match, but Khabib always shakes his head. Not because he can't still compete, but because, deep down, he knows that going back would unravel everything he built around his retirement promise. And maybe, just maybe, he's scared of not being the same man inside that cage. That quiet fear of not being the unbeatable eagle anymore haunts even the greatest. There's no question that Khabib Nurmagomedov is wealthy, but the lifestyle he lives in 2025 isn't the one most fans would imagine. He's not out flashing Rolexes, lounging on yachts, or getting bottle service at luxury clubs. Instead, his wealth is discreet, conservative, and, in many ways, isolating. His most prized possession isn't a car or mansion, it's privacy. Khabib lives between a sleek modern house in Makhachkala, Dagestan, and a gated estate outside of San Jose, California. But neither of these places feels like home to him in the traditional sense. He often speaks in interviews about missing his childhood village in the mountains, the cold stone floors, the one broken TV, the smell of pine trees. That nostalgia now serves as both a compass and a weight, because with success has come distance. Distance from who he was, distance from what grounded him. He rarely travels alone, not because of paranoia, but because being Khabib now requires a team. Managers, security, media liaisons. His schedule is constantly packed. Charity appearances, speeches, business deals, training sessions, and brand meetings. Yet when the day ends, the cameras are off and the entourage fades away, there's a silence that even millions in the bank can't erase. Social media only makes it worse. He posts motivational quotes, photos with his fighters, and product endorsements. But behind the curated feed is a man who sometimes looks out the window wondering what might have been if life had stayed simpler, if his father were still here, if he hadn't been forced to grow up so quickly in front of the world. To his credit, Khabib has stayed true to his faith and family. But with great power comes isolation. The more respected he becomes, the fewer people can relate to him, and even fewer are allowed into his inner circle. It's a lonely path, paved with discipline and fame. And though he chose it, that doesn't make it any less difficult. One of the heaviest weights Khabib carries today isn't physical. It's the legacy he built. Being undefeated is both a crown and a curse. Every interview, every article, every young fighter he mentors, they all begin with the same word, undefeated. That label, while glorious, has frozen him in time. It has become a pedestal so high, he's now expected to be perfect in everything, not just fighting, but business, faith, family, and public conduct. In Eagle FC, fighters often whisper that being coached by Khabib feels like walking into a monastery. He expects absolute focus. No alcohol, no trash talk, no excuses. Some thrive under that discipline. Others crumble. But the pressure isn't just on them. It's on Khabib too. He's trying to mold the next generation while still grieving the man who taught him everything. Abdulmanap was more than a coach. He was Khabib's moral compass. And without him, every decision feels heavier. In 2024, a controversy erupted when one of Khabib's close associates was accused of mismanaging Eagle FC funds. While Khabib himself was never implicated, the media frenzy forced him into damage control. For the first time in years, cracks appeared in the empire, and with those cracks came critics, people questioning his business acumen, his management style, and whether his quiet humility masked a controlling personality. Khabib's response? Silence. No statements, no interviews. He retreated from the spotlight and went to Mecca for spiritual cleansing. When he returned, he made changes, firing several team members, restructuring Eagle FC, and doubling down on his mission to build a platform for underprivileged fighters from the Caucasus. But the episode proved something. No one is immune to pressure, not even the Eagle. As he continues to build his legacy outside the cage, the expectations placed on his shoulders only grow. And for a man who's already given everything to the sport, his body, his father, his youth, that burden is one he now carries alone. In an industry built on spectacle, trash talk, and controversy, Khabib Nurmagomedov's refusal to play the game became both his signature and his struggle. Where other fighters built their brands by going viral, Khabib tried to preserve a sense of honor and paid the price for it in unexpected unexpected ways. Unlike Conor McGregor or John Jones, Khabib never needed scandals to sell tickets. But that also meant he didn't benefit from the chaotic publicity loop that drives modern fight promotion. Behind closed doors, UFC executives were said to be frustrated with his style. Dana White respected him, that was clear, but he also reportedly pushed Khabib to lean into more marketable behavior. More drama, more headlines. Khabib refused every time. No club altercations, no late-night tweets, no steroid allegations, no TMZ coverage. He didn't play the villain, and he didn't want to. But there's a strange thing that happens in MMA. Sometimes, when you refuse to engage in the circus, the audience forgets you exist. Khabib's clean image, ironically, made him less relevant to mainstream audiences after his retirement. He was too stable, too respectful, too drama-free. When new fans talked about GOATs, they'd mention names with longer careers, flashier finishes, or personal sagas that filled Reddit threads. In 2025, that disconnect has only grown. Khabib has become a ghost of the old UFC, a reminder of a purer time, yes, but also a symbol of something lost in today's influencer-driven fight culture. While fighters like Paddy Pimblett and Sean O'Malley dominate headlines with antics and podcasts, Khabib sticks to his tight circle, his gym, and his spiritual routine. He still draws huge crowds when he speaks at events in the Middle East and Central Asia. But in America, he's more of a myth than a celebrity now. He doesn't go on Joe Rogan. He doesn't hop on live streams. He doesn't do reality shows. And as a result, many fans who once idolized him have moved on. Not out of disrespect, but because Khabib never begged for their attention. There's a tragedy in that. He gave the sport its most dominant run. He brought honor back to fighting. And yet, in this loud, chaotic era of entertainment, Khabib's quiet dignity has made him almost invisible. Khabib has always said that family comes first. That's why he left the sport. That's why he never moved permanently to the US, despite having business there. And that's why, even now, he spends most of his time raising his 3 children, helping his brothers, and taking care of his late father's legacy. But prioritizing family doesn't make life any easier, especially when you're trying to balance tradition, faith, fame, and fortune. In recent years, Khabib has faced criticism from within his own community. Some say he's changed too much since becoming rich. Others claim he uses religion to justify his silence on political issues. Still, others accuse him of favoritism within his gym, of promoting only Dagestani fighters while sidelining talent from elsewhere. Whether true or not, these whispers have eaten at him. Because for someone raised in a tight-knit village, community perception means everything. He's tried to keep his personal life private. His wife has never been seen publicly. His children's names are rarely mentioned, but that privacy has fueled speculation. And the more Khabib avoids the spotlight, the more rumors swirl around his family and fortune. In 2023, a cousin of his was involved in a street altercation that made headlines. Though Khabib wasn't present, the media framed it as a reflection of his growing influence and the risks of having too many people under his name. Khabib's response was to retreat further. He canceled appearances, pulled out of interviews. He even shut down several of his businesses temporarily. Those close to him say he was exhausted, not physically, but spiritually. Being a role model for millions while managing family feuds, business pressures, and cultural expectations had taken its toll. He's still standing, still respected, but the price he's paid to keep his personal code intact is one most fighters wouldn't dare take on. His life may seem blessed, and in many ways, it is. But behind that blessing is a man constantly navigating a minefield of loyalty, faith, and modernity. Now, in 2025, the question surrounding Khabib Nurmagomedov isn't about who he'll fight, it's about who he'll become. The eagle no longer soars in the cage, but he's still circling the sport through his fighters, his businesses, his fans. And yet, even with all that influence, Khabib remains a man at a crossroads. Does he double down on being a promoter, risk risking his mental peace in the cutthroat world of MMA business? Or does he disappear completely, returning to the mountains, retiring from the public eye altogether? Friends say he's torn. Some days, he dreams of building Eagle FC into the next PFL. Other days, he talks about founding a religious school. And in the darkest moments, he wonders if he gave too much of himself to a sport that never truly gave back. He's financially set for life, yes, but money doesn't heal the weariness in his eyes. He misses his father every day. He misses the adrenaline of the cage. He misses the simplicity of training before dawn, with snow falling on the windows and his father's voice guiding him from the corner. The tragic beauty of Khabib's life is that he got everything he dreamed of, and in doing so, lost the things he didn't know he would miss. That's what makes this story more than just a fighter's tale. It's a story about identity, about discipline, about what happens when the thing that made you leaves you. Khabib Nurmagomedov will always be undefeated in the cage, but outside it, the battles never stop. And as the years roll on, the silence around him grows louder. He was the eagle, but now he's just a man, trying to find peace in a world that keeps dragging him back into the storm.